And we're live. Okay, awesome.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, okay, it says it for me now. Okay, well, welcome everyone. Welcome people who are watching to the very first inaugural Node.js Foundation website redesign initiative meeting. That's a very long name. On the 1st of February. I suppose before we get started, do we want to? I mean, we don't have too many participants. We can do a quick roll call. So just say like your name and I don't know. What do we commonly do for roll call? Just name.
Yeah, we just go through name and who you are. Just brief introduction.
Cool. Okay, I'll start, I guess. My name's Olivia. I'm the ComCom champion, which means I'm also in the ComCom for this initiative. Yeah. Who's next? Let's go down the list here. That would be, I guess that would be Tierney.
Hi, I'm Tierney Siren. I'm a developer advocate at NodeSource, and I'm co-chair of the community committee. And I've been trying to help drive this for a while. So I'm really glad to see this coming to fruition.
Okay, cool. Next up's Adam.
Hey, I'm Adam Miller. I'm a software engineer at LinkedIn in San Francisco. I'm a community committee observer still, I believe. And I'm the person who wrote that really long, detailed, fun blog post that kickstarted a little conversation on GitHub. So excited to see this moving forward. Okay,
Jeremiah.
Hey, I'm Jeremiah St. aka Fishrock123. I'm on the Node.js TSC on behalf of NodeSource, and yeah.
Okay, Francisco.
Hello, I'm Francisco. I'm working in Tokyo right now. I really like JavaScript and Node.js, so I'm happy to help however I can.
Okay, cool. Frederick.
Hello, I'm Frederick Hemberger. Started the whole website thing 2.5 years ago, and I'm still working on it.
Okay, let's see. Oh, Mark Kinkle. I guess Manil is next. No, wait, I skipped someone. No, okay, go ahead, Manil.
Hi, I'm Manil. I'm a ComCom member based in Vancouver, BC.
Okay. Next up is, I'm not sure how to pronounce the name, Dhruv? Dude, I don't quite know. If you can't speak, that's fine. Just like tell us in chat or something.
You're also muted by default. Okay, no worries. He said that he can't talk.
Okay, cool. That's fine. Next up is Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Hinkle. I'm the executive director of the Node Foundation. I am just here observing.
Okay, did I skip? Oh yeah, Timothy. Wait.
Hey, I'm Timothy. I just do open source stuff right now. I don't do nearly anything as cool as the rest of you.
That's fine. Who has like a lot of background noise? Someone does.
I think that's true.
Yeah, that's a lot of background noise. You might want to like mute yourself when you're not talking.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Perfect.
Muted them. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, now that everyone's introduced, we have a very rough agenda. Unlike like other meeting groups, we don't have them linked to issues right now because this is literally our first meeting. So I guess, does anyone have anything they want to discuss? Like they think it's really important and then we should discuss first? Because I just like, this is just a loose agenda that I pulled up. I can link it in chat if you're not aware. It's like literally the meeting issue. Does anyone have anything they want to prioritize over that's like on the bottom of the list? Because otherwise we'll just go from the top.
Looking at it now. I think moving general objectives up a bit under overall site, or well, I think that actually might be first, just to understand what our objectives are before we start considering site structure.
Okay,
Yeah, I
I'll,
definitely agree with that. And then maybe getting a little brain dump on the history of the website would be good
right,
for context for the whole
yeah.
group.
Also,
After,
just realized something I completely forgot is taking notes. We have a meeting minutes doc that is in the issue. If anyone wants to take it upon themselves to just like put down some of notes and then PR them later when the meeting's over, that would be much appreciated.
Could you make that comment rather than view only?
Oh, is it view only? Okay, I thought it made it.
Yeah, it's view only right now.
How do?
It's totally fine.
Oh wait, anyone with the link can edit. I need to do that. Okay, just get that, and then I'm gonna paste it in here, and I'm gonna put in the issue. So this link, if anyone wants to, like, it can be multiple people too. It's fine. Just like.
Perfect.
Cool. All right. Oh, I copy the link. Okay, cool. Right, so I'm assuming someone's taking notes. All right, then let's get started with the first agenda item, the general objectives strategy going forward. I don't quite remember who like put these points up. I collected them from the other issue in our repository, I think. I don't remember who made them. If anyone like wants to start like the discussion, I guess, feel free to.
I believe it was partly me. I'm
okay.
Just trying to make sure we mark attendance. Yeah, so that was kind of the things I put in that issue were the kind of structure that I thought we would probably want to take. And that was just me trying to help get us started somehow. And I'm not attached to that, and I don't think any of us necessarily should be. I just want to make sure we had some kind of base to go off of and pick apart and iterate on. So with that, it's totally open to discussion and kind of refinement. So yeah, that's generally where it is. And one thing I think we should be aware of at least is the idea of having a general kind of making sure we do this holistically. And so how we plan it, the actual information architecture, and then how we design it, and then how we actually go implement it, and making sure we're kind of considering the long term in all of those steps of maintenance. Because I think that is one thing that's really important, and we can't be short-sighted on that.
Right, yeah, I agree. So yeah, that's a good point. Maybe you should add that as a separate, like, long-term effects, making sure, I guess that could be a general point we want to follow, is making sure that the decisions we make, especially in this early stage, will not like become obsolete after a couple of months. That would be
or even
important.
like a year or 2 years.
Yeah. Because
Tierney, I remember you had a comment floating around somewhere about a proposed actual timeline and process for this. I think it was on the original redesign issue that was not in this website redesign repo. I'm trying to find it, but
is it the one in the
outline that you provided? Yeah, it is the one in the ComCom. I really like the outline that was provided there. If we could go over that and agree on kind of a framework for discussion moving forward.
Yeah, if we can
I just put it in the Zoom chat. It's the Node.js.org issue 1534.
Okay. Oh, it was a Node.js.org. Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's what you're talking about.
Right, that is a
perfect. Yeah. So the general gist of the proposal looks like, first, I mean, it's kind of like any product design, but it'd be good to have this codified for us probably. Discussion about site structure first, which presumably would be something that we kick off in this meeting. Then we could move on to design and talk about how we want to actually move forward with design. I know there was some discussion about actually hiring a designer if we have funds for that, or if it's going to be completely volunteer as well. What the process will be like for that. And then only then we actually get to implementation. And I'd actually like to call out that in the comment thread for this meeting, there were people itching to jump to the implementation immediately. And I think it's very important that we don't talk tech, we don't talk implementation for the first plenty of meetings, and strictly talk about content and structure and IA and experience, and get that hashed out in a robust way first.
Yeah, that's
Just throwing that out there.
a very good point. Like, we not only does the whole tech thing, as we've seen, I think in multiple issues, it's very opinionated. That's one thing, and I just kind of want to stop
front-end
that.
devs have no opinions on front-end frameworks.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's a good idea. It's like we do a lot of conception before we actually get to the implementation.
I should have brought up, actually, I'm here on behalf of someone else as well. I've got a designer friend that's happy to help out.
Oh, wonderful.
That's pretty cool.
Very cool. We should maybe add that as an agenda item, at least just brainstorm ways that we can manage the design process. It might not happen this meeting, but it should definitely happen.
Yeah, we can table that till it's continue to table that, have it as a standing agenda item until it's relevant and until we can.
Mm-hmm. We should do that. What we should also do is try and add link agenda items to issues, like create issues for agenda items, because otherwise it's going to be like you can't follow up on discussions outside of meetings easily, and other reasons I think that are pretty clear to everyone here. So let's try and do that.
So do you want to start trying to go down the agenda?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Cool. So we have like one thing I actually want to do is like meeting frequency before we go forward, maybe. Do we want to do every 2 weeks, every month? I think every 2 weeks is fine.
Every 2 weeks is good with me.
Okay, cool.
Does that work for you, Timothy? Is that what you said?
Yeah, same. It's good to hear for.
Okay,
great.
Cool.
Yeah, that works for me.
All right, perfect. Okay, let's go down the whole agenda here. So the next point would be overall site structure, which is kind of badly phrased because it's very general. It's a very generalized thing. I actually want to redirect to Tiani's comment in the Node.js.org issue, which is a little better, a little more verbose, which actually like lists as a subpoint here, assess current site structure, see what's needed and what's not, which I think is a very, very practical thing we can do.
Yeah.
In that vein, I'm sorry, Tierney, go for it.
No, go ahead. Absolutely.
Oh, I was just going to ask in that vein, talking about current site, I would, I jumped into this community just in the last 6 months or so, and so I know that I at least don't have a lot of context about how the site evolved, how we got to where we are, how the current content got to where it is, and I'd love to get from someone with context a little bit of history of the evolution of the site.
I think that person would be Frederick.
Yes, it would be.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Can we get like the elevator pitch version of the site evolution?
The site evolution basically was we started with IO.js and needed a website, and at the time of the merger, it became clear we need a new Node.js website as well. And Michael started working on something, and I was redesigning my own website, and I worked with a whole with the framework we're currently using, and I came and said, hey, I already implemented a very quick draft. Do you like it? And he was like, oh my God, this is so much more than I already started with. So let's just use that. So that's basically how it all started. And so there was never really a well-defined content structure for the website. Just new chapters and new menu items popping up. And also with the change of the foundation on all the governance rules, texts were just added, slightly modified. So we're missing the strategy part.
I want to add to that a little bit. So yeah, we did kind of take from the IOJS website, and the IOJS website was, I mean, there was never like a lot of design work put into it.
It was like just, I mean, five pages, I think.
Yeah, I think I made most of the original page, and then kind of, I think it was mostly Michael that got like some internet, like different language pages on it, and that was kind of about it there. So we kind of went with the same focuses that it had, which really were not very thought out.
So what I'm hearing is it sounds like we have a great opportunity here to get that structure in for this this next iteration. That's good to hear.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I'd like to add some context just as a user of I mean, I was involved early on, but I'd like to add some context as a consistent user of the site for information. There's a lot of barriers, and this isn't like, on anyone. It's just the way this is, we've consistently added to it. When there's a need for new content, we add page, and at least that's been my experience in using it, not necessarily in implementing. But like, we have about docs to get involved, security, and news, even the blog part of it. And so, each of these are, they could be structured a bit better. Like, one of the things that I used to do is I used to try to find the page where you could download the logo, because I used to download it a lot, like more than I should. And I ended up just using GitHub for that now, because I actually can never remember where the logo is, and like what page it's on, whether it's on resources or somewhere else. Yeah, it actually is on resources. So yeah, like just finding, really making sure that we pull back on what we have, and refine it in a way that makes logical sense, because there's a lot there, and I think we can maintain that information while making it a little bit easier to navigate.
Mm-hmm. And also add what I would assume make it easier to add more information in a more structured manner than is currently, which is just pull requests from people from all over the project, essentially.
Something that might be beneficial for this group to put in place, and not now, but in the future, we can open an issue for it just to chronicle it. But having a holistic process for adding new content to the site. So rather than having people open a pull request and somebody thinks it looks good and presses a button, we'll like actually have a review of it. We'll sit down, look at the flow, and actually have a bit more of an involved process for adding this. Have a design review. Have a
exactly.
I don't know what it would look like, but
because we had different stakeholders for the website. We had the website team, there was the foundation, there was the TSC, the release team, and everybody just added their part.
Well, we can certainly talk about that process once we figure out the foundations for this.
Mm-hmm. So just to make sure that we get through the agenda, let's I don't know, what would be a good place to like start? I think a good place to start is to kind of try and figure out a collection of what do we currently have on the website, and then from that point on we can say like, hey, here's what's missing, here's what should be added, here's how we should reorganize this, maybe like a hierarchical structure, sort of like a sitemap of information that we currently have.
I could do that.
Okay, perfect. So like I can create an issue for that after the meeting, and yeah, or if you want to do it, that's fine too. Okay, just make sure that we put that in the notes, like as an action item or whatever it's called.
There's one thing that I've noticed in the Node.js documentation. It seems to be especially wide in the way that most documentation have like few items top level and then you can go deeper into them. But Node documentation, it looks like there's many individual items that have to be shown at the same time. So I think this is a special challenge that is not normally found in many other documentations, and we have to design a solution around this.
Are you
So
talking about the API documentation specifically, or
Yeah. Yes.
the docs?
Yeah.
I will say that the API documentation that will be a special challenge because it's actually not made or not driven by the website. It's driven by the core repo or the TSC. Jeremiah can probably give more context around that, but that's not really the scope or domain of the website. So we'll probably have to have discussions about that and figure out where that lands and how we can work with that. And I don't think helping with that is a barrier or something we can't do, but it's good. Just be aware that there is a little bit of a barrier there.
Okay.
Right. I just want to make sure that the challenge there isn't a little bit overstated. Like I don't think there's going to be any problem with doing a redesign of that. So long as for the foreseeable future, the content is still going to need to live in the Node repo, and it needs to be able to be built in the Node repo for some reasons. But actually doing any visual or even potentially structural redesign of that, as long as the content is there, I don't think be a terrible thing.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to overstate that. I just wanted to try to help raise that as a topic.
Yeah. Was it Timothy? Was it you who volunteered to do a kind of sitemap?
It was Frederick.
Wrangling of Frederick, sorry.
No, yep.
So a good launching place to go from, and I'm just going to offer it out there as a resource. I don't know if everyone's looked it over or read it, but I published a little bit ago, and I just linked to it in the chat here. I published a little bit ago a blog post with a proposal for some IA choices, and it might be a good place, a good starting point for this conversation instead of just starting out of the blue. We can actually go from something concrete and say, yes, we like it, no, we don't, should explore more. But I'm going to float it out there as an option. In the blog post, I kind of compare Node.js to other major developer websites, and then make recommendations for the Node.js website based on what appear to be industry standards, and the best that I could see from other quote competing websites, including items for the nav, and then diving into each of those top level nav items and talking about the content for each page and the types of content you see and the best presentation strategies for each. So it's rather than start out with a kind of, we should redesign the site, it would be good to have something, starting with something concrete like this and like talking about specific proposals might be a good way to push the conversation forward. As a thought.
That makes sense, yeah.
I think I would like...
sorry, go ahead.
I think I would like to know first the objectives of Node.js website. Like, what's the main objective for the website itself? I mean, is it information? Is it download? Is it a user community? Which are the objectives for the website?
So my understanding, and Frederick and Jeremiah can probably correct me on this if I'm wrong. One is information primarily. Well, primarily download information, and then docs delivery, and then after that, getting involved. Yeah, contribution, right?
Download information, documentation, and
so downloads, informational, documentation, then getting involved.
Okay, thanks.
Though I think if we go through this process of consolidating our existing information structure, we might be able to make amends or reevaluate that whole direction. What do we want to prioritize and stuff? But yeah, that's sort of the main thing.
I'd like to add to that list. How do I get started? As a major question for people coming to the website.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay. Let me just kind of time box this because I think a bit ago we were kind of at the next point already, which is addressing content held in separate repositories, which with the whole discussion about the docs there. That's in the main Node repository. Yeah, that's a question. I don't know who brought that up, but it's a good question.
I brought it up.
Okay.
it's not just about the API docs, but at the moment we have stuff like the governance documentation, TSC members, our code of conduct. They are all linked to the main Node.js repo or the TSC repo. And I think that should be a part of the website. So if I visit the website, I want to see the code of conduct, for example, directly and not just go to some random GitHub repository to a completely different layout and I'm just presented a markdown file.
I definitely agree with that. That's a very good idea.
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, this could be solved technically, like syncing the markdown files or whatever, but I think that should be part of the website directly.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, it's much easier to also like cross-link, like just saying like, hey, go to nodejs.org/code of conduct rather than like a long GitHub link.
And yeah, I do think, I think it should still, the living one should still be in admin repo, but it should, like the one we refer to should be in the website, because just thinking of how our org structure works, I don't know if having the website own that will be a bit of a point of contention, but having it pulled from the admin repo will be acceptable, I think.
I agree, yeah.
What was the original question here?
Like addressing content held in separate repositories. Like, for example, the governance document, which completely lives in, like entirely lives in a GitHub repository and is not on the website.
So one opportunity for splitting up the website into multiple modules. I would love to see on the new site some type of learn page. Some type of like normal language guided tour of like, here's how you get started with Node.js. Step 1, step 2, step 3. It's currently kind of implemented on the current site. There's some examples on there that you can use to get started a little quickly, but it's definitely not the kind of really ergonomic guided tour that you see on a lot of modern developer websites nowadays. I know there's probably a lot of places out there on the internet where people have made Node.js guided tours or Node.js tutorials that we might be able to pull content from. Like we might not have to write anything to get that onto the website. I'm sure we could get somebody to contribute it back, something that's already existing. But that could possibly live in a separate repository and be maintained separately and all get built up together. Potential.
You're welcome to pull any of that from the articles that I've written on that.
Yeah, I just posted the 2 links. I just posted the 2 links for the getting started guys. But yeah, they are well hidden.
Yes, they are. Yeah. I think they deserve a top level nav item.
Yeah.
I don't want to overcomplicate things, but what would happen if we broke the docs out into its own sort of site, for example, like docs.nodejs.org, and then you could build a site that was getting started, for example, part of the content, and then you could extend it with markdown files or whatever from different repositories.
I think as long as we have a way of making sure that all these subsites are styled the same. Like when you click in between them, you shouldn't feel like you're going in between different repositories. As long as it feels like a cohesive experience, then I'd say that would be a good organization strategy.
I don't really agree with that because I've seen a few sites recently that have API documentation in a different site that looks completely different, but the documentation site works as a documentation site, and their main site works for a different purpose. For example, Zeit, if you go to their site, it works as a way to download their product and give information about it, but their docs work as a documentation site, and it doesn't look the same.
Yeah, but they typically have a unified branding, and I agree with for the API docs, it's less important to have it look exactly the same. But right. If you're going to have like the getting started documentation also as a separate submodule, then that should probably look the same as homepage.
Yeah, true.
So, yeah. So I mean, we'll of course play it by ear and let the designer, whatever the design process is, figure out what's the best experience for people. But yeah, as long as splitting up the website doesn't impact design. Something I always say at work is I never want technical implementation to be part of the thought process of a designer. So design should be able to do anything that they want to do, and as long as it is technically feasible, we should be there to support it. So let's let those with the design skill figure out what the best experience is, and then we get to make sure we support it. That's kind of all I was getting at.
This kind of links to my third question. Thinking with the Node.js Foundation website, because that's exactly what you were talking about. I briefly talked with Greg Wallace, how we get those two sites in sync, because they're using a WordPress setup now, and there are at least some plugins which allow you to pull a theme from GitHub. So basically, we could share code like header and footer of the general website frame. I think that would be important, but at the moment, the Foundation website loads totally different from the regular website.
Thank you for transitioning there. That's an important question. Yeah, I think we will have to kind of figure out as we go. I don't think there's a lot we can do right now, to be honest. We'll have to stay in contact with the people who do manage the Foundation site. And then, Tiani, did you want to?
Who are the people who manage that? Sorry,
Greg Wallace. No worries. Greg Wallace at the Node.js Foundation he's largely the one who's done, at least in my understanding, done the majority of the work on that, including content and kind of setting things up. I could be wrong there. But one of the things I do want to make sure is that we're not duplicating content, because they have been doing a decent amount of new things that I honestly think are good things for us to do as well. So I want to make sure we're not duplicating content. The application showcase is a really awesome thing. Leadership is actually in this site, and it's not technically correct. It just lists TSC and current members, and I don't even know how often that's updated, if it is at all. So and the meeting minutes link actually is a dead link. So I think we should probably have a discussion with him about the scope of different parts, and actually Tracy Hines is still listed as staff at the foundation on the site, and she's no longer with them. So yeah, that's just making sure we have our domains and there's no duplication of content that can lead to confusion, because I think right now that actually is something that exists.
Definitely.
I agree.
Should we, for future meetings, have an invitation to the Node.js Foundation site maintainers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's do that. And we can probably in our first IA proposal, we can include some thoughts and recommendations for the split of this content.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I will say Greg has been very participatory in meetings recently, so I don't think that should be an issue.
Awesome. As for unifying kind of theming and branding, I don't think it's unreasonable at all to emerge from the design process with a full system for how to brand Node.js related sites, like the official Node.js branding and design system. And I'd love to see that crafted in some shareable way so that it can actually this styling can be shared between the two sites. Technical solution aside, I think that should be an end goal.
That's a good point. Let's related to this, I guess. Let's skip one point that we're gonna do later, because I think we're well within time frame here, considering we started 10 minutes late. Let's go over to decision structure, because what I was thinking is if we do make such big decisions, essentially, if out of the design process there comes a full branding system, then that's project-wide, right? We need to implement that. across more than just the website, because otherwise that would what would be the point. The question would be, how do we make these decisions that don't concern only us, but also how do we make decisions that concern only us? Do we use a consensus model, or whatever? That's one question. I think that's what this agenda item means.
Also, newbie question, what's the current decision-making process for branding and design outside of the website? Who manages that?
Sorry, can you say that again? I have a bad connection.
That's okay. What's the current decision-making structure for branding and marketing and design outside of the website right now? Who manages that?
That's again under the foundation. That's Mark. You might be able to speak a little bit better at this, but there's a few people I know of.
Yeah, there's a foundation marketing committee, but Greg can get you the right resources. I put his email in the chat, but there's a new guy. His name is Sean Pressure, and he might be doing more of the work. So Greg, always start with Greg for marketing, and he'll direct you to someone. And I'll show up too. I just don't always have the time to do the marketing stuff.
Yeah, because whenever we move on to design phase, which I think is probably still multiple weeks out, we should definitely include the marketing folks from the Node Foundation.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that they'll have good branding and experience, but I think that this group can decide what they want the site to look like, and we can just be consistent in the way that we present the brand.
Mm-hmm.
And full disclosure, I sit on that committee a lot. I try to participate as much as possible as part of my employer. So that's it's a pretty good group. They are very open and always willing to help out, and always willing to listen to community stuff. So I don't see any kind of barriers there.
Very cool.
Okay, that's sort of like external decision structure. Internal one, like I think the ones that most committees and groups use is like lazy consensus type, which means like maybe Tierney, maybe you can explain this better than I can.
Yeah, so it's generally consensus seeking. As long as there's Jeremiah might be able to explain it better than I can, but as long as there's consensus, general consensus, and no explicit objections or hard objections, then things can pass through. When there is a hard objection, that the objection needs to be addressed either with the person objecting, or it needs to be resolved on the actual implementation. Or whatever is being commented needs to be addressed, or whatever is being proposed needs to be addressed. So it's generally just to make sure we all are able to maintain sanity and spend our time as we can to not force contribution, but contributing as you can, basically.
Does that sound like an agreeable model to everyone? Because if so, I will make amends to our governance document, because I don't think that's currently in there, that we do use this.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
Okay, I'll do it then. Just like mark that down in the minutes.
Pretty sure it used to be listed somewhere that it used lazy consensus, similar to how Core does, where, well, if no one objects, then kind of everyone agrees.
Yeah. Not sure if it was in this repo. Yeah, whatever. I'll just make amends and I'll PR it. That's fine. Okay, cool. Because this is like the first instance of lazy consensus. It's passing the lazy consensus itself. Cool. All right.
A little meta.
Yeah. Let's go over to the one we skipped, which is missing requirements, which I honestly don't know what that means. I'm so sorry. Who brought this up?
What was it?
The what's that? Missing requirements thingy. Is it like in the vein of any blockers, sort of external blockers before we can get started? Is that the thing?
I think that could also mean, are there any major goals of the website that we don't think haven't already been talked about?
Yeah, I see that as, do we need to do something that is not currently there in the website?
I have a few things to add to that list, if that's the case. There's currently no great way of switching between documentation versions on the website. Like, I have a lot of really nitty-gritty features that would be cool to add like that. So there's no version switcher on the documentation. That includes both any getting started documentation already there and the API documentation. It would be great to have a better overview of the release structure and how it works. There's some description there, but it's buried and a little hard to find.
It is indeed.
Yeah, I think since this spawned from the community committee, a robust community page is also missing at the moment. That would be awesome to add. And what else did I have? I had, I don't know if we want to, how we want to manage this, but actually, is there already? I guess technically news. A lot of sites will have a blog. It looks like under Node.js we call it news, but just how we present that, and, how we present those blog notes.
It's basically the release blog, and the foundation has its own blog on, I think, Medium.
Yeah, Medium, the Node.js collection. That might also be a point. Is like, is there a way that we can maybe like kind of consolidate that blog into the site when the time comes?
So something I make note of in the Medium post that I posted in that chat. I think there needs to be a strong distinction between community articles and kind of fluff content. Something that you would want to go share on social media, something that you would subscribe to and get in your inbox and read in your free time. There needs to be a distinction between that content and the content that would go on a website blog. I believe that the content that goes on especially a software, a coding language, essentially what we are, a website blog should be like nitty-gritty release notes and change log information, which should probably remain entirely separate from the Node.js collection, because they serve two very different purposes.
The current news, it reads a lot more like a changelog, but then suddenly you get some articles on Meltdown and Spectre. I think they are totally different concerns, and people looking for one will be bothered by the other in the same page.
That's true. Yeah, like I wasn't suggesting we put it on the same page. That's a bit too extremes just to have that mixed in. That's definitely a part that we should address in the content strategy structure thing.
Definitely. I think having a call out to the Node.js collection on the release notes, the release blog, whatever we're going to call it, would be a good strategy. Just be like, hey, if you're not looking for release notes, looking for more community information, go over here, go subscribe.
I think the three major things that appear on the news page are release notes, security announcements, and like major foundation news.
The foundation notes don't appear anymore. They moved to the Medium blog and to the foundation website. So it's 90% release notes.
I know, it's
interesting.
Fun.
I think we're overcomplicating
really remove those. Yeah, I think we should remove the release notes and put them, for example, on the downloads, and don't call them blog posts, but really release notes to make it clear.
Yeah,
I think we're focusing too much on content right now rather than what we should put on the website.
Yeah, thank you for the pull back into reality there. Yeah, we want missing requirements, right? Let's I think that's pretty much done. Like we have it all noted down, I assume. Yeah.
I have a suggestion that I'm missing a lot in Node.js website right now. Since I know already the basics, so sometimes I just want to go in and search for something. And to find what I want to search, the quick ways just to Google it, there's no way to easily find it in the docs. So search functionality, I think it will be really important for this situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I definitely do think we should kind of try to get a little bit higher level. We probably are going a little bit too far in the weeds here.
Okay.
So yeah, just I didn't. That's not a comment on any specific thoughts. I think we should definitely get those written down, and note them. But we definitely need to make sure we're heading toward planning out what we're going to be doing from each part of this. So information architecture, design, and then implementation. I want to make sure we have a path going forward, and actually we have something that we can walk away from this meeting with in terms of, okay, this is actually a next step. Does anyone kind of do we have that already, or if we don't, what do we need to get there?
I'd probably say that we need some form of documentation on what we need in terms of upper level content of the website, like what features should be present, what should be the main goals, what features in the current site achieve those main goals and can be improved in the future.
Okay.
But yeah, I think we're talking a bit too content-y right now.
So does anyone want to try to take that on as like a to-do, is start codifying that? And then I think we can start with a base, like in an issue, and then go from there, and all kind of contribute to that issue with comments, and then we can update the original post with a final proposal type thing. Would anyone want to take that on? Not looking at anyone specifically.
I can certainly help out with that.
Okay, great. Thank you for doing that. Cool.
Okay. All right, so we have our top level objective for that. Then there's one point that I guess we should also talk about, the last one here, which is previous attempts at redesigning the website. I think this is not like an actual future facing thing. This is more just to clarify why this is happening now, because this has been happening, I think, at least 2 times before, not in this capacity, but there have been attempts to redesign the website from scratch, essentially.
Yeah, there have been 2 attempts.
Yeah.
One was Leo's, who basically came up with a brand new design. So there was no discussion about content structure or whatever. It was more like, yeah, the current website doesn't look so good, and here's a completely brand new design. Would you like to use it? And we could start from scratch. But that ended relatively early. So he was busy with work. So there was just a couple of screenshots. And the other time was someone from the foundation was saying okay, we're working on something. We'll let you know if we have something. And then it never actually happened. So I don't know who was working on the team, or if it was more content focused or more design focused, but that ended nowhere really. So I think it was really a communication flaw issue between the foundation and the website team. And I think that's something we still can improve. Because even now with a foundation part of the website gone, in air quotes, we really don't regularly know what are they doing, what new content is coming, what are they working on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess as a sort of an explanation as to, I guess, why that didn't work before is because it never really came from the community itself. One time it just came from one person, like an outstander, who I believe coordinated with Michael, if I recall correctly. That was Leo and Michael's initiative. Yes. And then it came from the foundation side, which just, I don't know. I wasn't there, but it sounded like it was sort of the same deal. Just a couple of people saying, hey, we have this, and then not working out in the end.
But it didn't work out, basically, from what I understood, because they didn't continue, neither of them, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's really a lack of serious proposal, let's say, or like continuous proposal. Yeah.
It was a lack of engagement and not lack of engagement, lack of communication with the team working on the website,
Okay.
and then they just kind of end up dropping off. And I on the foundation side, I also actually don't know a ton about that as well. But that my experience with other ones was just not enough time, and it was single point of failure basically. And there's that again. There was nothing wrong with that, but that's just how it ended up. So.
Okay, thanks.
I think that's a good point, really. Behind that is that this is a big project. Like the stuff we've been talking about now is huge stuff. It's not really like a small scale static site or anything. It's going to be hard to find people with the time, everyone's got jobs here.
So a good idea will be to break it down into manageable parts, right?
Right, yeah, that's what we should do.
Yep, that'll be the challenge.
Yeah, and I think that's really what I was trying to get at with that structure of IA design code is I was trying to at least start that process, and then we can kind of break it down from there if that's the approach we want to take. So.
And also just the fact that now if we do need any like design help, we can actually like with foundation funds hire a designer if we need to. And that's like a huge thing that we didn't really know happened before or like was available to us.
Mark, can you comment on that and what the process we would need to go through if we did decide on doing that?
Sure, but can you repeat I was just updating the leadership site because you told me it was out of date. I wasn't quite paying attention, to be honest.
No worries. So just requesting funds from the foundation to hire an actual designer. Are there any specific processes we need to go through? Like, do we need to get competitive bids and stuff like that, or if we agree on someone, is that possible?
So right now, just like with all, there are funds for community programs set aside and such, and marketing programs set aside for the year, and this is outside of the budget. So you could make the request, and basically, I could help you get bids, but I think the key would be to do a statement of work and maybe some suggested vendors, and then we can help you go through that process and select it. Because we will end up having to make an agreement between the foundation and the vendor, and we'll have to go through that vetting process. But like the best way to start would be, just have an idea of how much work, if it'll be, and just a ballpark. Because I got to go raise that money is honestly how it works. But it's ideally, and I'm glad this is moving forward. So just so you know, ideally the best thing to do when you have a community request is to try and get it in before the end of the year so we can budget for it for the next year. And
okay. Just like to cut you off here, TN, is the live stream and the meeting dependent on you being there? I guess he's already left, huh? That's okay.
I think that I'm still have the administrative account, Olivia, so I think it won't end until I end it.
Okay, cool. That's cool then. Right. Okay, cool. Thank you for that explanation. Like the thing is like, we are basically acting as an open source project, right? So it's not going to be easy from the outset on.
Yeah, but if there's some kind of the reason the foundation is there is to find the resources to make sure that the project is successful. So I can do my best to try and get you what you need. But it's just a matter of coming up with that statement of work so we can get, and you all probably know better than I who are qualified people to help us with this. So I'm happy to
if it helps, me and Tierney have already spoken to one of our friends that is willing to help out for less of a price than he'd normally charge. So we can always look there if needs be.
Yeah, and that's fine. We would just vet them like we would any other vendor, but the recommendation carries a lot more weight.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a crazy idea. I don't know if it's even viable or not, but why not? I mean, the community is huge for Node.js, and there's many designers also. So why not to publish a competition contest or something like that where people from the community can offer their proposal, and then there's some small prize or something like that. Something like this.
Because
I think we might have forgotten about this before, but this was actually there might have actually been like a sort of third attempt to redesign the website, and there was something like this that was sort of done, but never really came out to anything.
I mean, but the idea for the redesign is someone to make the redesign, and then other people will do the implementation, right?
Mm-hmm. That's. I think the last kind of contest that we had in that manner was selecting the. What was it? The logo redesign? Wasn't that also a public contest of sorts?
Exactly, the logo.
Yeah. Did that go well? I don't remember. I don't quite. I think it would be an entirely different thing because it's on such a massive scale.
Yeah.
It would be easier that we centrally make sure that we get the thing we want in the website across to the designer we choose. And I think it's more important that we are in sync with the designer or the design agency or whatever we choose, rather than just saying, hey, here's what we want, do something. Everyone just put in their proposals. Because
we will of course send the requirements to the competition, and then the people, and then we will judge the results based on these requirements. I mean, it wouldn't be like, oh, just do something. It will be kind of the same information as we will give to the designer.
My fear with a competition like model is we want ownership of this process, and competitions work well for stuff like logo designs because it's a small scoped design and a big bang release. There's not this long tail of work that then has to complete. So after we announce the winner, we want to be able to work with that designer again. And if it comes from a competition, we don't have a guarantee that we would with a vetting process with a vendor or with recruiting somebody explicitly from the community, because there's going to be a lot of back and forth here probably. We're going to have a first iteration of content and structure ideas. Designer will come back and say, it kind of works, but you might want to try this. We'll come back with other content that fit that recommendation. So we want that ownership and that stakeholder in the process, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. Based on how design sort of competition-y things have worked out for Node.js, I don't really think that's a good or viable route for this.
It didn't really work out with the logo back in the days. We had quite mixed results. And I think most were coming from developers, not even designers or somebody with a little bit more experience about brand and design and color and stuff like that. And for the website, I think it's the sheer scale, because you don't just need a single screenshot for the homepage, but for the download for regular content pages, it can become quite complex. So I'm not sure if that worked very well. So I would prefer to work with a dedicated designer or agency, so we can go back and forth with them to discuss details.
Just building upon what Adam said, it would be good as well if you work with someone that you've chosen to work alongside them while you're planning out the site, get their input on things. Whereas if you just hand off this huge document that we've decided on and we've talked about, and then just say, go do it, and we'll choose who we're going to choose, that's not the best situation for something of this scale, I think.
Yeah.
So I think it's totally fine if the designer comes from the community, and if it's a vendor, just as long as they're involved in the process. That's I think what I'm hearing is the consensus for we want a design stakeholder, not a one-off.
But on the other hand,
Oh, sorry.
On the other hand, if you're working on such a huge project, I think it would be cool if the people would be probably paid. So not just doing like the logo in like half an hour where you say it's okay, but if you put hours work into it, so the people should be really paid.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. Like you're basically demanding, hey, give us free labor, all of you. Yeah. That's also like an argument. Francisco is
welcome to open source.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole other thing I don't want to touch on because we have 4 minutes. Francisco, is your like, have you any more questions? Basically?
Oh, no, that's totally valid argument.
Okay, cool. Right. Are there any other questions? Does anyone want to like put in something before we stop the stream here?
I'm gonna float the question and then not want a resolution or an answer on it. But we have the opportunity. I guess we have the opportunity to think about even deeper about brand and logo, especially if we're hiring an agency or hiring an expert. Do we want to allow, and this is just testing the waters again, I don't think we can even get consensus on this in a single meeting, but do we want to open the floodgates to like lower level brand design, tweaking the logo, that type of stuff? I don't have an answer. I don't know if it's even possible. So
I think that as you think about these things, you should also prioritize like what's most important, because there isn't a ton of funds in there. But if it needs to be done, we'll figure it out. I'm just trying to get an idea as I just went through the budgeting process and things are tight. If we want to do things like Collab Summit and things like it's just a priority kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be done. I'm just asking if it's something we even want to consider. Sounds like the answer's not really. So that's totally fine.
Okay, cool.
I have a question about sorry, about the timeline. Because you were talking about budget for next year, I think I heard. So what's the estimated timeline? When do we want the website? Like, is it like few months or many months?
That is.
I guess, Mark, would it even be possible to get funds for this calendar year, or is that locked in?
Everything is possible. It's just a matter of going out. Honestly, the way we budget just is that I know what committed funds we have from our membership sponsors right now, and I'm always trying to add. And this year, as I add, those funds go. They're pretty much the only place I would change the budget is adding to community programs. So if a big cloud provider that sells books maybe joined up or something like that, maybe that would provide more funds that would go to community programs. That's how it works. And we have some in reserve as well, but I'm trying not to go into our reserves in case things turn bad or we needed another emergency something or other, build infrastructure, things like that.
Totally.
Okay, cool. As to like general timeline, like not like budget timeline, a general timeline as to like when do we want to ship this essentially, because that's also a question we I think should ask ourselves at least. That's a good question. I don't know. It's very hard to like pinpoint down in the first meeting.
Okay.
And like I think does anyone like have any? Does anyone think?
I think we'll get a feel for this team's velocity as we have a few more of these. I think definitely for next meeting, it would be nice to have some concrete, like we can get into the weeds a little bit more about concrete site AI and structure than we did today. So it would be good to have, depending on how much conversation happens offline, it would be good to have some details to maybe dig into. And then we'll be able to evaluate what state we're in for wireframing, if we want to do that, if we want to get a friend to do that, and then we can talk about the design handoff. But we won't know until we get a feel for this group's velocity. So
I agree with what Jeremiah also just said in the chat, like no less than 6 months. That is an absolute minimum, I would say. But yeah, again, it's hard to pinpoint. Don't want to do it now. Really doesn't feel like the time to do it.
I think 6 months is a good goal.
Yeah. Okay, we are kind of exactly at an hour, I believe. So let's stop the stream first of all. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you in 2 weeks probably.